Hello and welcome to the Vorthos Cast.
I'm Jay Anelli.
And I'm Carrie Thomas.
And today we wanted to put out a special episode of the Vorthos Cast to talk about an anniversary near and dear to our hearts. 10 years ago, the modern era of Magic storytelling began as Wizards of the Coast moved the primary outlet for Magic story from novels and novellas as it had been for 20 years to free online web fiction, starting with The Madness of Sarkhan, which came out on August 27th, 2014. The first episode of main Magic story web fiction came out with Khans of Tarkir.
But let's get some backstory. Magic the Gathering is over 30 years old, and across the decades Magic's story has been told in a variety of ways. Comic books, video games, novels, and most recently through web fiction. In the beginning, Wizards contracted the story out, and much of the groundwork for Magic's lore was laid with the Harper Prism novels and comics from Acclaim's Armada imprint, which established a great deal of what we know about the Plane of Dominaria and early Magic history. Then, around 1997, Wizards took back control of the story as internal writers had prepared a sweeping epic, which would become known as the Weatherlight Saga. The sets around this time, Mirage, Visions, and Weatherlight, didn't get much story as a result of this transition. The cycle would repeat a few times over the years as Wizards has shifted its priorities and story strategies.
So from about 1998 through 2008, Wizards of the Coast published 42 Magic novels, one for every card set released, and anthologies or side novels tackling and revamping older set stories. Then in 2008 came a shift. Magic started to approach things differently. The novel line was scaled back as interest waned. People just weren't buying the novels, even when they packaged them with, the fat packs of the time. And eventually the novel line was canceled altogether around 2011's Innistrad block, along with an ongoing series of webcomics. But Magic was growing, and as the game grew, so did Wizards' online presence. Daily MTG, which had sort of started to become a thing around Mirage and Visions, would become a place fans would go every day for new articles from Magic's designers and lore articles. Daily MTG became a great opportunity to communicate with fans, and Wizards became one of the most transparent companies about their game design process and philosophies. This is when Mark Rosewater's regular columns started. We had a lot of design and development articles all the time, and even background on flavor and world-building articles.
Enter The Cursed Blade, a piece of experimental web fiction and ARG for the Innistrad block that would serve as a prelude to a fuller embrace of web fiction with a regular series to be known as Uncharted Realms. Now, Uncharted Realms was a weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, series written entirely in-house by Wizards of the Coast creative team members and occasionally by Magic designers and other staff. As this experiment took off, Wizards attempted a series of e-novellas to tell the main story of their blocks, first with Return to Ravnica in 2012, and then Theros in 2013, both written by prominent members of the creative team. But doing both proved to be unsustainable, and so the team looked to Uncharted Realms to tell their main story, and Magic's serialized fiction officially moved to the web.
In Jenna Helland, one of the primary architects of the modern story paradigm's own words, Tarkir block marks the first time we released sequential, plot-relevant stories on the web. The response has been fantastic, and we plan to continue to deliver the storyline in a weekly column. And they have for almost 10 years, although the weekliness of it has changed.
Within a year, the story had exploded in popularity, and a new Vorthos fandom, which had faltered since the end of the novel lines, was born. Uncharted Realms was renamed very briefly to Official Magic Fiction before becoming the Magic story column that we all know and love today. But as things tend to do, priorities shifted. Creative control changed internally. Magic began using outside authors for web fiction. Magic attempted novels again. There were briefly more novellas to mixed results before we finally landed on a Magic story web fiction model that was a fusion of the previous efforts.
From that first stab with Tarkir to the latest story of Duskmourn, there have been a handful of significant changes, but the Magic story column is still around and overwhelmingly the most popular and successful experiment in giving players a free and direct way to experience the story of Magic the Gathering.
Happy 10 years to Magic Web Fiction, and here's to 10 more.